Welcome to Impact. I'm Philip Morris, CEO of Proctors, and your interviewer for today's art segment. Our guest I'm delighted to introduce is Billy Tighe, who plays Fiyero in the current run of Wicked. Welcome, Billy.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm delighted you're here. Great job.
Thanks.
This is our second play of Wicked in the market, in the community, and you guys have been fabulous. In fact, the people who have seen it both times, both of the roadshows, say they like this one better.
Oh, that's very sweet. Well, you know, I can say in 2009, I was actually an audience member here at the Proctors to see Wicked.
Oh, really?
Which is kind of bizarre to have seen the show then and then to be in it now. And that Schenectady is kind of a common ground is very strange.
That's really interesting. Where did you come from to see the show?
Well, I came from New York. My wife was actually an original cast member of this touring production. She played Nessa Rose. And so I was being a good husband and was coming to see the show. And so I came to see it in Schenectady.
At the closest play.
Exactly. And this was the closest location to home for us.
Oh, that's really funny.
So it's actually really interesting to kind of see how the market has changed and how the city has changed and see how the show plays. And
well, the community's changed radically the last 10 years. I mean, just
absolutely.
Unbelievably. And
Absolutely.
We've been at the heart of it. It's been kind of cool.
Oh, absolutely.
So what were you doing while your wife was on the road?
Oh, lots of different things. I mean, this is my fourth time out on a tour, so I've been doing that and then auditioning. At the time, I was auditioning and busy doing other things. And
so were you here for La Cage aux Folles?
I was here.
Must have been, right?
Last year, I was here for La Cage aux Folles.
Yeah.
Which was one of those tours.
Yeah. And fabulous tour. It was really fun. Really
It was fun. It was a wonderful experience for me to be a part of, especially in contrast to something like Wicked, because they couldn't be farther apart in terms of types of show and types of dynamics of what's included in the show thematically. So for me, it was really neat to kind of go from an acting piece like La Cage, where I was amongst all this beautiful glitz and glamour and this wonderful storyline at heart, to then go to a show that's like Wicked, which is broad mass market appeal and
lots of
huge
kids.
Spectacle. And I mean, it's like being part of a movie every night. It's astonishing.
So give me 10 seconds, give us 10 seconds. Where are you from? Where did you grow up? How did you end up wanting to act?
Well, I think it's all very, just kind of fell into it. I know a lot of people say that, but I had no interest in theater at all. I grew up in Marietta, Georgia, and the only commonality that my mom had as my family moved around was the arts, and my mom kept me in church choir, and that somehow fell into me meeting a choir director who was a director at a local performing arts high school, and he was able to coerce me to coming, said I had some skill, and being a young 12, 13-year-old boy with no interests or anything, I was like, yeah, that sounds cool. And so I went and really thrived in that market and in that environment, and really discovered that this was what my passion was, and I haven't looked back since. And it's been amazing, and I'm astonished that I had zero interest in it then to where my life has become now.
That's right. It is very interesting. So where'd you go to school?
I went to school in Georgia for high school, and then I went to the University of Cincinnati for my undergrad.
I didn't know what the initials were.
The CCM is the University of Cincinnati, and then they have a college conservatory of music.
One of the best in the country.
Absolutely.
Fantastic school.
Absolutely.
My choral director when I grew up was a CCM graduate also.
Really?
Yeah. So I sang with him for many years, almost 15.
Gosh, that's cool.
When college ended, he didn't get appointed for his permanent position, so we created a choir and I hired him. So he was a full-time choir director.
No kidding.
In our community, running 2 choruses full-time, and so I ended up singing with him another 10 or 12 years.
Wow.
So it was really kind of interesting.
Yeah.
So what does your mother and your family think of this career thing you created?
They actually love it. I think there were a lot of members of my family who were interested in music and the arts, and that's always been a part of our family. But in terms of people pursuing it professionally, I'm one of the few to have actually really gone for it. And to think that at the age of 13 that I made the decision to kind of go to an arts high school, and my parents never batted an eye, and they were completely and 100% supportive. And that astonishes me, considering that I had shown zero interest in it at that time, to then say, I want to go to a school that's an hour away from where we live. And my mother was pregnant at the time, and they were like, sure, whatever, we'll make it work if that's what you want to do. And they never questioned anything about it, and they're still my biggest supporters. They come and see me in everything I do multiple
as
times.
a parent, there's a point at which you kind of go, phew, a choice.
Exactly. I think that's what it was. I think that maybe the arts was just kind of always in my blood, and that creative spirit, and I couldn't find myself grounded in any academics or in any form of sports. And then I finally found something that they saw a passion come out of me, and they were like, well, that's what it is, then why would we discourage that? And
So how do you imagine the next 20 years of your life emerging? Do you like being on the road? Would you rather hope for something in New York?
Of course. I mean, I think the hope is always to find myself grounded at some point. But while I'm young and still able to travel and still excited by the prospect of travel, it's really fun, and it's a great way to do it, because outside of the show, my responsibilities are to rehearse and do the show, and as long as I can do that, then I can do whatever I want during the day. And we go to some fabulous cities, and we're able to see all sorts of different places, and that's been really, really fun. And it obviously has its huge downsides.
Right, like never with your wife.
Yeah, exactly. But I think for now it's been a lot of fun, and it continues to be a lot of fun. But I would hope in the next 20 years that I could somehow find my way back in New York, or back in some city that has a really thriving arts community, where I could continue to pursue this as a full-time career.
Yeah, that's great. So now you are the love interest of two witches.
Yes.
And you win the green one.
Yes, yes.
Wow. As an actor, how does it feel? How do you play that out?
Well, I think what's interesting is when I went through the rehearsal process of the show, I had a conversation with Joe Mantello, who's the original director, and he said, what we're always aiming for in the storytelling is that this is a love triangle amongst the three of them. And it's not necessarily a romantic love triangle. It's just a mutual understanding of common personality traits and like these strong convictions that they all have as people, all find matches in each other. So it's a triangle of love and friendship amongst the three of them equally. And so he said, I don't want you to think of you as playing the romantic lead between picking girl A and girl B, but as they have their own relationship that you would never try and sever, as well as you still have a relationship with both girls, even if one of them ends up being romantically more than the other. And so I guess that in approaching it makes you feel less bad about turning your back on one, but it made it a nice way to approach each relationship each night, that it wasn't I'm romantically trying to get involved, but there's something about Glinda that attracts Fiyero on a deeper level than what appears on the surface, as well as obviously what happens with Elphaba, that there's this connection that the two of them have, where he's a better man because of these two women in his life.
Well, one of the lovely things about the story to me is that that's so real, right? How many
Absolutely.
young people, I don't mean just young people, but young people, because that's the transition in their life, are in a group of 3 or 4, and
well, I think
they're matching up their
right,
needs and personalities.
He's with Glinda, and Glinda is the woman he needs at that time to show him the person that he's becoming and the person that he currently is, to help him become the man that he can eventually be with Elphaba. And unfortunately she gets scorned a little bit in there, but that's part of the good story as well.
I remember the first time I saw the show, the first 6 months it was open in New York, I walked out going, wow, I never thought I'd fall in love with a green woman. So I envy you, Fiyero. Yeah. So now I looked at your website, and there you are, Spider-Man against the wall.
Sure.
Are you an acrobat?
I am, actually.
Yeah.
I do have a gymnastics background, and that has proved to be a useful skill here and there. I wish I could say I would get to tumble and do tricks as Fierro, but I don't think they would.
No, that's probably not right, but where has it been useful?
Well, I primarily when I first moved to New York as a young leading man and in that type, I was too young to really play any of the roles that I can play now and was wanting to play. And so for me, that meant to get a job, I needed to get a job as a dancer or as an understudy. And a lot of times those skills that you need as an understudy are dancers and people who are more triple threats. And thankfully, a few of the shows that I did initially, I used those gymnastic skills to secure those jobs.
Oh,
I did my first really big show out of school was Dirty Dancing when they were doing the pre-Broadway tryout for that, and I was the gymnastics track in the show. So my job was I understudied 4 different roles, and then I was also the gymnast, like the onstage gymnast in the show. Whenever they needed some sort of trick, they were like, "You do it."
That's great. Are you a quadruple threat? Do you play an instrument?
I don't.
Yeah, because it's so interesting how that's emerged. You know, I'm watching once going.
It's everywhere.
You got to be able to play too.
I feel like I'm the only guy in theater who doesn't play the guitar. It's becoming more and more so. Like all of a sudden, especially I've been touring on and off since 2006, and the amount of guitars that have appeared backstage has grown exponentially. They should do a chart to show like the emergence of the John Doyle shows with all the music on stage.
Yeah. In
contrast to the people learning how to play instruments backstage. It's very interesting.
Yeah. I have a friend who's thinking he should open a school for the quadruple threat.
They should. I mean, they should start teaching. I know a lot of schools have started teaching piano as an effort to increase musical theory abilities in performers. But
who then can pick up an instrument as necessary.
Sure. But I feel like I still, at this point, should still pick up an instrument, although I don't know if I have the skills to do it. I don't know. I've never tried it.
I'm sure you do. You should try one.
Try.
You know what? Yeah, actually, for me, this is goofy, but I worked a harmonica. I can't play it well, but it forced me to figure out enough theory to get what a scale was, to really get what a scale was. Yeah. Which so often for singers, they avoid it because if you can get close, it's good enough, you'll get it because of your ear. And so singers don't end up knowing theory well enough.
Of course, that's very common.
Yeah, so it's
very
interesting. So do you want to be Spider-Man?
Oh, I mean, who wouldn't?
I wouldn't, but I wouldn't be able to do what you do.
I would want to do it just to do I would say don't even necessarily want to do the show. I just want to do the flying stuff like once or twice and then be done with it.
And land up on the balcony.
I just want to go from the stage to the balcony once and then say I did it.
Well, terrific. Well, thank you very, very much for being in Schenectady. Thank you very much for joining our show. It's a delight to see you. 2 more weeks at Wicked in our town. It's fabulous. Thank you. And I'm sure we'll see you on the next round.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or else I'll see you in New York.
Hopefully.
Billy Tighe, the leading man at Wicked for the next few weeks at Proctors. Philip Morris, thank you for joining us at Impact. Proctors, bringing the best in arts, education, and entertainment.